With RAM prices at an all-time high and many GPUs at their highest ever prices right now, you might think that building a proper budget PC is close to impossible, especially if you're only using Temu parts. But the only way to know for sure is to try. So in this video, I challenged myself to build the fastest possible $500 gaming PC using only Temu. And somehow, even with this budget, pricing, and limited options, this ended up being one of the nicest budget PCs I've ever built. But of course, the first step of the challenge is to actually find the parts. But the second I opened up Temu to find the first part of the build, the CPU, I immediately realized just how difficult this was gonna be. Cause out of every online marketplace I've used, this had to be the worst place to buy tech. I mean, you open the search bar and the first thing you see is this. Some of these I don't even know if I can show on YouTube. And even outside of those terrible recommendations, the prices are absolutely horrible. Every single PC part you can find on here is like 3 times cheaper anywhere else. Like, look at these prices. 3060 for 737 Canadian dollars. And an RTX 5060 for 809 Canadian dollars. I refuse to believe that 81 people bought this. Those have to be botted. But the worst part is that outside of Canada, the prices are actually not bad. These are the type of deals that you can find on the American Temu website. RX 580 pre-built for $400 and a 6750 GRE for only $200? It's not fair, bro. And now you might be thinking that there's a really simple solution to this. Just order from the US website and ship it to Canada. But the thing is, all of the better deals that you can find on the US website, they come from local warehouses, not from Temu themselves. So they literally refuse to ship it to Canada. I've tried multiple times, tried putting in a Canadian postal code, just doesn't work. And the only listings that are shared between regions are the garbage deals. So I'm just stuck having to overpay 3 times for basically everything. But here on the Electron channel, we don't just sit here and complain. I'm still going to build the fastest PC that I possibly can. So let's go find that CPU. As I've said in previous challenge videos, most of the most popular games right now are CPU intensive. So it's crucial that we get some sort of capable CPU. However, when I was searching for Intel CPUs, I only got entire computers with Intel CPUs inside, or straight up RAM kits for some reason. I searched Intel CPUs and got RAM kits. What kind of search engine is this, bruh? And when I searched for AMD Ryzen CPUs, I had even worse luck. All I could find was one mini PC with a Ryzen CPU inside, and it gave me RAM listings again. Not really what I'm looking for. It wasn't until I searched just CPU that I could actually find a couple of options. And by a couple, I mean exactly 2, though these were not good options at all. First of all, the 7500F needs DDR5 RAM, and the cheapest DDR5 RAM kit on Temu is already $500. And the only other CPU option we have is the 5700G. Pair it with a power supply and boom, our budget is pretty much entirely gone. So with the CPUs being incredibly overpriced, I knew there was only one strategy I could use for this challenge: the Office PC plus GPU meta. So it's gonna be a pretty simple build, similar to what we did for the eBay gaming PC as well as the $100 fastest possible PC. So I started my search for the best possible Office PC for this challenge. The first one that caught my attention was this 5090 PC. Not RTX 5090, but Optiplex 5090 with an i5-10400, 16 gigs of RAM, and a 512 gig SSD. Not the worst specs in the world, but for $380 I knew I could definitely do better. So I continued looking for more full tower PCs in specific because those can actually fit a full-size GPU inside. And eventually I found an HP EliteDesk full tower with an i5-8500. It might sound a lot worse than the 10400 because it's 2 generations older, but it's actually not that far behind when it comes to gaming performance. And on top of that, it only cost $260. So far this was my best option yet. Now it's time to find a GPU for this build. For reference, the best GPU deal I could find on AliExpress was a 5700 XT for $170. That's already not the best deal in the world because you could find it for like half the price on eBay or Facebook Marketplace, but Temu makes the prices on AliExpress seem like absolute steals. Because the best you can do on here is an RX 580 2048 SP for $170. A much worse GPU than the 5700 XT. Another huge problem with basically all of these GPUs is that we're going to need a power supply upgrade as well. Because all these RX 580s and 6500 XTs, their recommended power supplies are like 500 watts. And I can 100% guarantee you that none of these office PCs have that big of a power supply. In other words, we're cooked because power supplies on Temu cost 6 times more than they're supposed to. So an RX 580 build, though that is normally the meta, is not going to be possible here either. That means I'm essentially forced to buy GPUs that can run without external power. That doesn't leave me with a lot of options, and most of the options that I have are garbage. Respectfully, I'm not trying to buy another GT 710. Bro, I had to use this thing until I was 16. You know how insane that is? My goodness, this thing is slow. Regardless, the best option that I had was this GTX 1650, the fastest GPU on Temu that doesn't need external power, and it's also top 6 on the Steam charts. Not that it really means anything, but it does have some sort of status. Shout out to everyone still using a GTX 1650 today. But to save as much money as possible, I had to download the Temu app on my phone. It seems like most of their coupons are exclusive to the app, which is very annoying. Because if you've never used the Temu app before, basically what happens is the second you open it, you get a shit ton of promotions, and most of them end up being fake, right? Like this one I got, for example. It says I'm gonna get $300 back in coupons, but it's just a bunch of $20 coupons that cannot be stacked. Same thing with this $705 coupon. I know everyone who's watching this video is smart enough to not fall for something like this because it literally says coupon right there, but if Temu still runs these promotions all the time, surely it's tricking a bunch of old people, which is very sad. But if you were listening closely, I said that most of them end up being fake, because this one said it was gonna send me $72 straight to my PayPal. But I was thinking to myself, right, like why would they do this? This doesn't benefit them at all, so it has to be a scam. But I was way too curious. I wanted to see what would actually happen at the end of all this. Does anyone who sees this deadass think that Temu's going to PayPal them $72? Seriously, who is falling for this? Definitely not me, because they're actually gonna send me $74. Oh my goodness, I'm so lucky today. My dream is finally coming true. I got $74. Oh, so this is how it ends. We have to spend $1.80 to get $90. But wait, I'm gonna buy this GPU for the challenge anyways. The only thing that's gonna happen is I might get $90 back. Oh no, I might get $90. I'm so scared. But there was a catch. I couldn't just buy the GPU. I had to also buy this furry mask. Well, I didn't actually have to buy it. I could have bought literally anything else, but I'm secretly a furry. Good thing nobody watches this far into my videos. Though I did have to buy this mask, I basically just got a 1650 for $67 US. That is, as long as they actually do send me those 90 Canadian dollars. I checked my phone the next day, and unfortunately they did actually send me the $90 to my PayPal. Because I did not plan for this, I didn't realize that I was gonna have so much money left over. So I'm stuck to just buying the best possible office PC with the rest of my budget. Now you're probably asking, why would this be a problem? Was this not the plan anyways? Now you just have more money to buy an office PC. The only thing is, every expensive office PC on Temu is doo-doo. Again, the most expensive office PC I could find was this i5-10400 one. But for $523, I would rather spend like $150 less for a slightly worse CPU, the same storage, and the same RAM. And I think most people would as well. The difference is simply not that big. So here's where I thought I should make a pretty significant change to the challenge. And what I'm going to be changing is the budget from $500 US to $500 Canadian dollars. Not only is that going to make the build have better price to performance, but it's also going to make the challenge less confusing, because now we don't have to worry about the value in US dollars. Now that I've reduced the budget pretty significantly, I thought it would be a good idea to just see if there's any coupons out there to try and get this PC as cheap as possible. Normally when I search for coupons, I find basically nothing, but this time I got very lucky. And along with the $90 cashback I got earlier, our total somehow ended up being $497.88 including taxes and shipping. This couldn't have worked out any better. Except my order was canceled because apparently my document couldn't confirm that I actually owned my credit card. What are you doing, Temu? You do not want my money, Temu. So I had to reorder it and it got delayed for absolutely no reason. Fortunately, they have this policy that says that if they're late to deliver, then I get $5 for free. So let's hope that they're late. Unfortunately, everything arrived on time. But that wasn't the only thing that was unexpected, because a lot of random things came with the PC. I knew I was gonna get a free keyboard and mouse, but the rest of the stuff was completely unexpected. For some reason, the PC seller gave me an HDMI to DisplayPort converter. We also got the worst mouse ever made. It feels very cheap, and the scroll wheel is trash. I know some of you in the comments got a trash mouse like this too. Trust me, I've been there. But bro, I promise you, you just gotta spend $30 on an Attack Shark X3 or a Kaisona Aztec. It'll make your life so much better. The free keyboard I got is also garbage, as you would expect, but the best part about it is that it probably has better glide than this shitty ass mouse. We also got some sort of Bluetooth adapter or something. Don't really know exactly what it is, so I'm gonna have to try it out with the PC later in this video to know what it really is. Moving on to the GPU, I'm not gonna lie, I was definitely very excited to open this thing up. And if you've been watching this channel for a while, the box for this GPU should look pretty familiar. But yeah, I mean, the GPU looks exactly like what was advertised, no bad surprises, so let's just get to building the whole thing and seeing how well it performs. Like with any PC build, I try to make space for the GPU by first removing these slot covers, but instead I almost cut my finger open. Good job, Electron. Should have put on some gloves. Anyways, the GPU fit perfectly after removing the slot covers, and the best part is that because we spent that little extra money on a full tower PC, we were able to properly close up the PC with the GPU inside. Something that I would not be able to do with a small form factor PC. But we haven't won just yet. I still need to find out if I did in fact get the specs that I paid for. And when I checked in Task Manager, I was relieved to see that we got everything that we paid for. The i5-8500, the 16 gigs of DDR4, a 512 gig SSD, and of course the GTX 1650. But before we continue, like with any PC and especially one from Temu, it's important that we completely wipe the PC with a fresh Windows installation. No matter how trustworthy the seller is, you always want to do this to avoid pre-installed keyloggers, viruses, and stuff like that. So I deleted all the partitions on the computer and reinstalled Windows 11. For any Linux people watching, I know there are a lot of you, I'm simply using Windows 11 because we need to test Fortnite and 512 gigs is just not a lot of space to dual boot Linux. However, this did end up taking a lot of time, and by the time I did all that, it's already 5 AM. So we're gonna fast forward to tomorrow and benchmark the games. Now that it's the next day, we're gonna be testing 6 different games from different eras of modern gaming, ranging from competitive esports titles to AAA single player games. Starting with Fortnite, in the FPS test map, we get an average of 327 FPS and a 1% low of 236. You can see that in this case, we do have a little bit of a CPU bottleneck because this game is so much more CPU dependent than it is GPU dependent. But looking at the numbers, you can see just how power efficient this PC ends up being. Like the full system pulls less than 150 watts. And look, I'm not the best Fortnite player in the world, so if I can do 19 triple edits on this PC, I'd say that this computer is putting up decent numbers so far. Moving on to another competitive game that's not too difficult to run, we have Rocket League. And in this game, I just messed around in free play for a few minutes, and we finished with a 234 FPS average and a 160 FPS 1% low. If you wanted more FPS, you could definitely turn down the render quality to performance or just quality instead of high quality, but in my opinion, I feel like these are the best settings to play on with this PC. For the first AAA game of the video, I had to test Tomb Raider 2013 first, just as a warm-up before we get to the more demanding games. And in this game, at 1080p ultimate settings, it's an absolute breeze for this PC. We get 90 FPS on the benchmark, and after playing a few minutes just messing around in the game, this game is an absolute amazing experience on this system, so definitely gets a pass from me. The next game is Rise of the Tomb Raider, so I turned it up all the way to the very high preset and just turned down the textures to high because you need 6 GB of VRAM to run very high textures, and unfortunately we could only afford 4. Moving past that though, this was easily the most difficult test so far. This was our first time dipping below 60 FPS, and also the first time where we got even close to using all 4 GB of VRAM. Despite all of that, we still pull away with more than 60 FPS. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I was genuinely surprised to see it run as smooth as it did when it was using over 4 GB of VRAM before it even loaded up. In fact, it went over the 1650's VRAM limit for half of the benchmark. But I guess the GPU just didn't care because it ran relatively smoothly. Like, I know the frame time graph kind of looks a little bit insane, but you can see the video right now. Those jitters are very minimal and barely affect the gaming experience, especially since this is a single player game. However, we did finish with slightly less than 60 FPS, but you can see that we were only 23% GPU bound, which means that 77% of the time we were bottlenecked by something else, and in this case, it was obviously the CPU. As you can see, it was choked up at 100% almost the entire time. So if you're not forced to shop on Temu like I am, pairing the 1650 with a better CPU will get you more than 60 FPS in this game. And finally, for Cyberpunk, the most demanding title that we're going to try out today. While using the low preset with XeSS quality, we were able to finish with 58 FPS. And that's pretty much the limit of what this PC can do. I'm happy with the build given the situation, but as I said earlier, never build a PC using only Temu. Something else that you should never do is buy a $14,000 GPU from 2012. So if you want to see what happens when you try to game on one of Nvidia's most expensive GPUs ever released, watch this video next.